Hi, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Craft on Tap, where we talk about growth marketing for RIAs. My name is Stephen Beach, and my co-host Faustin Weber. We are with Craft Impact, an outsourced CMO and digital marketing team for independent financial advisors. Today, we are going to talk about Google reviews. So I want to give everybody some homework and add this to your list of things you need to do for your marketing campaigns, for your marketing strategy. You need to pay attention to Google reviews, and we're going to talk about why that is and our approach with Google reviews with our clients, and then some things to look out for with compliance, of course. So why don't we dive into it, Faustin? Why do we care about Google reviews? Why should the advisors listening care about Google reviews?
Yeah, nice. So Google's just one of the platforms where potential prospects are going to look up the firm, right? We have like Wealth Tender now that a lot of advisors are on. We have Yelp. We have, even like Facebook has reviews. So we chose to feature Google because we definitely feel like it's one of the most important ones that's still relevant to pretty much every single firm, every single RIA that we work with. The big reason is that people still use Google. It's still the number one traditional search engine. It's the number one search by far. I know if you're an advisor listening to this and you follow marketing, you've definitely seen a lot of people in the industry sort of hyping up AI. We've talked about it on some of our other episodes, and there's no doubt that behavior is shifting a little bit as it relates to how many people use search. But this idea that Google has dropped off the face of the earth is just not real. Really, the way that people use Google is they've heard about your firm or an individual advisor as a referral from one of your current clients, or they've seen if you're posting across different things like LinkedIn and Instagram or other channels, or they find you on YouTube. People still use Google primarily for looking up a particular brand, right? Kind of think of it as like a gateway to figure out the URL of the homepage of your firm. And so when they Google your firm to try to find out whatever that firm URL is for your homepage, they're going to see all of the reviews come up. And so I would say just like that is like one of the main pieces for why Google reviews are so important, is that for a lot of people, it's going to be the first impression that they get from your firm. There are going to be some of those prospects that bypass Google altogether and just get the link right from a referral. But for the most part, they're going to use Google. And so you definitely do not want that to be their first impression, like a 3-star review, for instance, or 2 stars. That can be something that's an immediate deterrent. So that's like one of the first reasons why we prioritize Google reviews as being super important. So just make sure you have an awareness and an idea of sort of where you're at with that. The second reason is that Google definitely uses the your rating as part of its algorithm in terms of ranking your page and the subsequent blog articles and other pages on your website. So I think that's an important piece, just to make sure that you keep in mind. The higher that you're rated, the more likely that your site is going to have a reputation score that is able to show up in different types of searches where you could potentially be found. I'll also say too that we've seen, we've talked about in some other episodes, Stephen, where the majority of our more affluent prospects, the 2 million, 1 million, 2 million, up to 5 million, they're not typically going to search randomly like financial advisor near me or financial advisor that's good with stock options. They're typically going to go to somebody that they trust in their friend group or their family, or they're going to go to a referral partner like a CPA. But we have had some traction for localized searches, right? Like where somebody just moves to a new area, maybe they don't know who to ask in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area, for instance. And they do want to try to find some more information about a particular advisor because it's important for them to meet in person. Google is going to they're going to first list the sponsored links for the people that are paying for those localized searches, but then they're going to list on a Google map as like a little snippet, even before it gets to any of the blue links. They prioritize the highest rated Google Reviews to list the firm on that particular page. So these are just a couple of reasons why we prioritize Google search. First impression, super important. Uh, Also, it's going to be something that really helps you showing up in the Google search results when someone's either looking for a local firm that they can meet with, but even like when they're looking up other queries where your pages might show up. Am I missing anything with that, Stephen, for
Good. I'll
like
just
the
say, like,
importance?
maybe a nuance to the first impression would be for in this scenario, you get a referral, and then that person is going to go online and kind of check you out. You know, they'll do a number of things like watch your videos. Hopefully, if you have those, they'll check out your website. They'll visit you on different social media profiles, whatever it may be. So it might be their first digital impression. Maybe their first impression is from their friend or their colleague or their family member that says, "Hey, go check out my financial advisor. You should consider them," whatever it may be. But then, yeah, just imagine them getting on their computer or just Googling, real quick on their phone, and the first thing they see is, 2.7 out of 5. It's like, oof, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's not, that doesn't feel validating. We had this actually happened to us, where I got a referral to, work with a different RIA firm. They said, you should go work with this firm. So the first thing I did, same thing. I Googled their name, and I'm just starting to kind of poke around, right? So I'm not a prospect. I'm looking to work with them potentially. But I Googled their name, and it was 1 star out of 5, and it had these terrible, like, 3 really scathing reviews, like just nasty. And I'm like, this doesn't feel good. I don't want to work with these people. It turned out it was the same firm name. It was a different company that had changed, like 7, 8 years prior, and they had some legal issue with the name. And so, anyways, it wasn't their Google profile. It wasn't their Google review profile, thankfully. But it just gave
Yeah.
me a sour taste in my mouth at first. Because, like, ugh, even though my client says, "Hey, go talk to this person, this firm, you'd be great," I'm kind of second guessing it all of a sudden, just because of the first thing I see online is something that's 1 star. It just gives you a bad taste in your mouth. So that's the importance of it. And like you said, the how how often that's happening. That's happening all the time with people, whether they refer to you, or they're cold. They're going from a stranger to a client, and they found you in whatever way they found you. That's happening all the time, that people are getting that impression, whether it's a first or second impression, and you may not even know it, right? So they're doing this in the background without you thinking of it, but it's happening. So yeah, that's good.
I'd also say too that that was really well said. Also say too that LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, they also they also reference the star ratings, and ChatGPT. A lot of people say that they don't use Google reviews, and even ChatGPT I think says that. But based on my experience doing all the testing for all the different clients, it definitely uses the ratings because it's pulling 4.9 stars, 4.8 stars, 4.7 stars from the only source that I can find that matches, with that being Google reviews. So it won't reference Google. It won't say that it's a Google review, but it'll prioritize the highly rated listings, based on the stars that it gets from Google. And so that's another piece, right? Like, we don't see ChatGPT, we don't see LLM search completely taking over this industry like some people might be talking about right now. However, if people are using ChatGPT, it's another reference point, what that it pulls from in order to sort of rate the firms. I mean, if you type in best advisor, I'm in Columbus, Ohio. If you type in best financial advisory firm in Columbus, Ohio on ChatGPT right now, it's going to pull 3 to 5 different firms, and it's going to pull in star ratings. It's going to show me where they are on the map, and then it's going to extract the specifics around some of those reviews, and help it to make value judgments, based on what it's reading. And so I just think that's an important thing to keep in mind too, that you're putting yourself not only in the best position for Google search results, but also for the LLMs as well. Now, I want to say just a quick aside on that. ChatGPT, some of the LLMs will pull from other review sites as well. Yelp is one that it pulls from right now. I have a client right now who's just like phenomenal Google reviews and 5 stars across the board. They haven't gotten one negative review, but there's like a 3 star on Yelp that it actually like factors into the overall rating for how ChatGPT is returning it, and that drives me crazy, right? So it's just a good. We're talking about Google reviews in this episode, but anywhere that you're rated, right, on the internet at this point, if you are focusing on ChatGPT results, but even Google overviews, right? It's just important to make sure that you're aware and that you're trying to actively fix any of your reputation scores across any of these channels. Right, Stephen?
Fix, address, optimize, build upon. Yeah, depending on what the situation is. Yeah. Um, I had a client. This is like 10 years
Nice.
ago. I remember he said it wasn't an RIA. It was just a manufacturing client, and he had a disgruntled employee where the employee's girlfriend left a 1 star review, and it was like all caps. It was all this nasty stuff, and she was just letting him have it. And he was like, "Okay, so how do I delete this thing?" I'm like, "Girk, you can't delete it." I'm sorry. He's like, "What are you talking about? So people can just write whatever they want?" I'm like, "Yeah, basically. On the internet, that's just what it is. The best you could do for something like that would be to respond to it, and do it in a professional way that shares your side of it and sheds light on the actual situation, how it unfolded. And that's what he did. So anyhow, it turned out all right, but it was just one of those tough ones where it's like, yeah, I mean, people can find these different sites. I guess Yelp is making a comeback. Technically you could do it on Yelp, and they could just anywhere on the internet, write, whatever they feel like writing. So most
Yeah.
times with our clients, right, we don't run into these issues, but just, if you do have something like that from years ago or from a former advisor who was with your firm or whatever it may be, you might need to address it. What we're focusing on today in this
Yeah.
podcast is really more about, yeah, building your Google review profiles and building on it, and generating more 5 star reviews, because we know that our clients and whoever's listening to this has plenty of clients that are really, really happy with the service and with the firm and with the results, that they're definitely willing to put down a 5 star review, just haven't really been prompted to, haven't known how to, that kind of thing. So anyhow,
Yeah, really, really well said. You touched on it. Like, what do you do if you get a negative review, right? Or if you do have a 1 or a 3 star? And the best way to offset it is just to get as many reviews that are 5 star as
yeah,
possible. Now, you run into a little bit. So let's talk about that, Stephen. So we've seen advisors and our clients do this a number of different ways. One of the simplest ways to solicit reviews that's best from a compliance end, because remember, like with the new marketing rule, there's very specific disclosures that you need to put around compensation or not compensation when you're trying to extract testimonials. And um, but reviews are interesting in that you can't really control what people are writing in the reviews. So we found it to be like pretty compliance okay anytime you're sending out a mass request for people to fill out a Google review. Typically compliance doesn't really have any issues with that. Even like after the fact, whatever they write, you don't necessarily have to do a bunch of disclosures and stuff on the Google review itself. So one of the best ways that we've seen is one of our firms, every time they send out an ADV, like the updated ADV that they have to send out anyway, they just couple that with a request for a Google review. And they've typically gotten like 10, 15 reviews every January just doing that, 5 star reviews. They don't ask for a 5 star review. That's typically how we would talk about it with other industries, right? Like we ask for a 5 star review just to make sure it's clear. I can't do that in our industry, but just asking for a review in that case is a really good way to do it. Would also say that we have a number of clients that have really worked on a process for asking for reviews after each of like a particular type of client meeting each year. So let's say that you have, 1 or 2 annual meetings a year. You have it as part of your agenda to talk about a Google review that can then be linked with, if it's an in-person meeting, you have like a little QR code that goes right to your review that's sitting like on top of that's sitting on top of the desk that you're meeting with, so people can just pull out their phone and like leave a review right there. It could also be part of a follow-up email to that quarterly meeting that just has a specific link to leave a review. And those have typically been great from compliance end because you can say, hey, this is just part of our process across all our clients. We're not soliciting individual ones or not. We're just going to, as part of our process, ask for a review after each one of these particular meetings. So that's been great. There have been some clients that have been a little hesitant on that because it's hard. It's just like asking for a referral. Sometimes it's tough to ask for a review, but they have found that by making it more systematic, makes it a little bit easier. It's on all the agendas now, right? So those are just a couple of like easy ideas on how to consistently ask for reviews. ADVs have to go out. You have to have the meetings. If you just make the asking for the review part of the process in both of those cases, those typically have been kosher from a compliance end, and they've ended up generating more reviews on a consistent basis. What do you think about that, Steven?
I love it. Yeah, I've seen, like you said, printed placards or little, little kind of collateral around the office for that. But it's not like you're, as you shake hands and say goodbye, thanks for the meeting, you're not like making them leave a review. It's just kind of like, subconsciously planted around the office. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that's good.
And even like a slide at the end of if you do, some of our clients have like agendas that are more like, like Word documents, but some of them use slide decks. And it's a great opportunity to just put a little slide in at the end of the slide deck that has a little QR code that, your client that's meeting with you on Zoom just can scan right from the desktop that they're meeting with you
I
on,
mean, shoot.
and can go and leave a review. So those have been really successful. We've also had more like specific campaigns around reviews where like we'll for one of the situations that we worked through with compliance, we sent a survey out to everybody in the entire client base, right? And then we went back based on the client review because we had like a baseline, compliance needed a baseline. Then we went back to individuals and reached out to them and asked them to leave a review. So that one was a little bit more like specific to the individuals, but the compliance team that we were working with thought that that was okay by the marketing rule because we had asked for an entire initial baseline first. And then we actually had to go back and just respond to the reviews that were done on Google with a little bit of a disclosure because we were more specific about which ones were asked versus not. So it's a little bit more of a lift by the firm, but the overall benefit of it was worth the cost of having to go in and do that because we were able to get some of the 5-star reviews posted then. And then another thing we do is we always interview our clients if they haven't gone through a messaging workshop process recently. And we get a lot of really good nuggets of testimonials and everything from those. And so we'll go back to our clients and just ask them to leave a review and kind of like copy a small quote from something that they said and say, here's something that you said just as a starting point. More often than not, they'll just copy paste that into the Google review. However, that is more of like that's
That's
one
a
a
little
little bit
tricky.
more on the
Yeah.
compliance end. Yeah, a little bit tricky that you just have to make sure that you like talk through the whole process with the compliance team or whoever you're working with. And then that might be one that you have to go in there and, get some responses on. So really like, there's not too many like incredible strategies as it relates to the Google reviews other than just consistently ask for them, right? And if you continue to do a really good job with client service, which most of the firms that we work with do, you're going to be able to assemble. You might have a negative review every now and then, but you're going to be able to assemble a pretty, big list of 5-star reviews.
Yeah, I think ideally the reviews get baked into kind of the client service delivery somehow, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
But it can still be a slow process. I mean, just I don't know. It's a little bit of effort on the part of the client a lot of times, but it's just like another thing to do. And a lot of people, maybe they're not tech savvy or whatever it may be. So we've also put together the one with the baseline. I remember, I think it was that client. We put together kind of like a 3 email series campaign, if you will, that just reminded people, like spaced out every couple weeks
Yeah.
or whatever it was, just to say, here's the initial ask. And then number two was like, okay, if you haven't done this, we kind of like refine the list and send it to the people who haven't done it. Okay, if you haven't done this yet, we'd love it. It would really help our business, whatever it may be. And number three, last chance, like no pressure, but if you want to, here it is. Just because sometimes we get some takers on follow up number two or follow up number three, you know. So that doesn't take us. I think from the marketing side, it's pretty low effort once we figure out kind of the approach, like what works for our clients and what they're most comfortable with, asking for how they want to roll it out, and then compliance, obviously, once we get that approved. But as far as like putting together multiple email follow-ups like that, it's pretty low
Yeah.
effort. So that's worked nicely also.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, you're hitting on one of the main challenges that we run into is that
People don't like
it's
doing
you have
work.
to have a Google. You've had to have a Google account in past years, right? They've recently just changed it, and we were just talking about this at the end of 2025, where you can do it anonymously now, which is kind of interesting to think about. But you still have to like have an email, like validate the email, and then you can leave the review. This has been one of the things that has been a barrier is like either our pre-retiree, retired clients don't have a Google account that they can easily log into and leave the review. Also, some of them really prioritize their anonymity and also their privacy. And so some of them have even communicated to me, like in our client interviews, they're like, I don't want a bunch of other people
Yeah.
knowing that I need a wealth management firm. Like I don't want to communicate that to the public. So there are some barriers there that you need to work through. But for the most part, like most people are willing to share their positive experiences. Um, just some other like use cases for Google reviews. You can repurpose Google reviews across many different places. We've used a couple of like these like little cool Google review widgets on the websites where it actually just like pulls in the Google reviews themselves with a little, make sure that you have a nice disclosure about how the reviews were obtained and they weren't compensated, et cetera, that your compliance team can work with you on. We also just sometimes have just pulled Google reviews as testimonials, gotten the permission from the person who posted the review to be able to post it on the website. Again, with the right disclosures. That's another good way just to obtain some testimonials that are a little bit lower effort if you just use what's already posted on Google. Um, and
Like
then
getting
just
more
a couple,
runway.
another,
Let's just say for that, you're just getting
yeah,
more runway out of the effort to ask and then obtain the reviews. So like the widget thing,
yeah.
like if people aren't clear on that, yeah, there's an embed you can use. There's different tools that, depends on your website setup and whatever. But yeah, you can make it look really nice where it kind of gives that social proof on your website, and it's already, it's just pulling in the feed from your Google reviews. So you can bake that into your website design. So we talked in an episode in the past about credibility and kind of validation with financial
Yeah.
advisor awards. I think it's another tactic you can do. You can implement to kind of build up your credibility and just reinforce for those folks who are coming in and kind of checking you out. Just reinforce, yeah, it's social proof. It shows them, what your clients think and that you're trustworthy and all those kind of things. And again, you've already done the heavy lifting. You just need to get the right marketing tools in place to display it in different places.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And again, that's a choice you can make whether or not. I mean, if you don't have good reviews on your Google profile, you don't want to make the choice to embed them on
Great.
your
Make
website
sure
as
you have
well.
good reviews
But
first. Yeah.
but yeah, but if you do have 5 stars across the board, like a scrolling widget that just has like compliment after compliment after compliment can be really impactful to
Yep.
put on your site, which is great. The one thing I see when we were talking about this episode a little bit, like some of the challenges, if you have multiple locations, like if you're trying to set up like multiple firm headquarters, there's a little bit of trickiness around like using the same homepage URL for your Google profile. So you got to create multiple profiles that are all underneath the umbrella profile. And you can set that all up in Google Business Reviews. But we really advocate for specific URL listings per main location. So, like right now, we're helping launch a Nashville section of one of our clients, whereas they had just had a location in another place for a long time. So, what we're doing is we're creating a specific URL on the website for that new Nashville location with specifics around Nashville, some pictures of Nashville, the team that's located in Nashville, a separate contact form for Nashville, and then we're going to have the Google business profile use that Nashville URL. And I think that's really important. You can get yourself in a really tricky situation when you're creating multiple profiles that all have the same address and same phone number. It just doesn't compute with Google, and it's really hard to get it verified. So that's a whole nother episode in itself, like the local SEO around particular headquarters across the country. Creative planning does this really well. So if that speaks to you to try to do that, just go in creative planning, look how they have specific locations for every single place where they exist and how they rank in Google. But just something to keep in mind with that. And then the one thing we haven't talked about, Stephen, is just like the Google business profile. So it is really good. It's just related to the whole reviews. Is just make sure you have a really nice logo. Make sure you've uploaded some nice team photos. If you've done any photo shoots where you have team photos that you're using on the website, just import those as part of your Google profile listing. And then we typically would have like multiple services that you would offer. So if you do focus on retirement planning or tax planning or estate planning, just have each one of those as a service that you add with like a nice graphic. Just make sure that your Google business profile looks robust. It helps with the rankings too and kind of where you show up. But it also just helps make it a more appealing place to leave a review, even for the clients that you're asking. It just makes it look so much nicer, and it just creates a better interface and experience for anybody trying to look you up on Google. A lot of the SEO people say post every week, multiple posts about how you're doing. I think in our industry, it's probably not as important. If you're a restaurant with multiple deals and you're trying to show up for like top food restaurants near me probably be a lot more important. But for our purposes, I think if you just have a nice like landing spot for your Google business profile with some images, some of your services, some of the nice shots of your team, you'll be in a really good spot to get those reviews and to rank high in the localized searches.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it'll default to the Google's what do they call it? Google Maps default image of your building address, right? Which a lot of times it's just like the side of
Yeah.
like a brown brick building. It's like that. I've seen that on the
Yeah.
listing a lot of times. So if that's what your listing looks like, you're on the right episode. This is good. Just make a list of all the things you need to do to update. But one of them would be change the photos because yeah, it's like Faustin said. It's like you can think of it as like a mini website. You can optimize it. You can add to it. You can write product service descriptions in there. You can treat it as another property, a marketing asset for yourself that you can really work. So yeah, that's good on the
Yeah.
photos.
That's well said. The last thing I'll say, Stephen, is just celebrate every review because it's hard to get them. I know we're talking about it like,
Yeah,
yeah, just send out some emails, but to get somebody to go onto Google and to actually like write a review, right? And to like log into their Google, write a
yeah,
review, put themselves out there like that, that's big, I would say. So that would just be like one component of like every review you get, it lives on your profile for your entire existence, right? It's like an evergreen asset forever. So as you start to build them up, um, you know, 10 reviews, 15 reviews, 30 reviews, 50 reviews, it's just something to celebrate. And so you can get, excited about that, especially if they're 5-star reviews.
yeah. Really good. I'll say one more thing about the locations that you mentioned just a minute ago. Is just
Yeah.
we have a client. I'm just bringing this up because it might be a familiar scenario, but yeah, we have a new client in Minnesota. They have over 100 5-star reviews on their Minnesota office, right? That's where they came from. That's where they've been for over 20 years, et cetera. But then, the firm owner has established a secondary office down in Florida. So, he'll spend some time down there, probably more so during the winters, as opposed to, Minnesota winters. So anyhow, they've had some trouble setting that up and getting that going, to kind of catch up to their main first office location. Like you said, there's some steps involved there to kind of verify the second listing, and then to tie it to your website with a specific URL, firmname.com backslash, Miami, or firmname.com backslash Sarasota, whatever it is. So yes, I just want to point that out. You might be in that situation where, initially you just had one office location, and over time you've got, maybe you have advisors that are placed, nationwide, working remotely. So you can set up different listings if you have enough presence in those different cities that you want to start putting some more like dedicated marketing to that. I think that's a pretty common situation. Anyhow, I'll just say last piece is just, like I said, we have clients that have over 100 5-star reviews. We have clients that have zero review. We have a new client that has zero, so it's going to become a priority for us in their marketing strategy. And then we have clients that have, 7 to 15 reviews, but they've got some old ones in there that for whatever reason they're less than 5 stars, and they kind of have a little bit of a blemish on them. It just doesn't look or feel the right way. So we're working to generate more 5-star reviews so that those can kind of be just bumped down, and then that their overall rating is becoming closer and closer to 5. So wherever you are, in those three scenarios, I think, what we're saying here is that, Google reviews are still very important to work into your marketing strategy. Understand that Google owns both Google Search and Google Reviews and a million other properties. So the more you put time and effort into a Google review profile, Google is going to reward that in their other tools such as Google Search. So it's, to us, it's worth it. It fits the space. You need more of that validation and credibility a lot of times, even if you're just reinforcing a referral that's coming in. So we think for the effort, it's definitely, a marketing tactic to prioritize. Hopefully that means your marketing to-do list isn't too long at this point. If it is too long, you can reach out to us at craftimpact.com and just send us a note about, kind of what your main marketing challenges are, and what you're looking to address and where you're looking to go in the next year. And we'd love to talk about your specific firm situation and at least give you some tips and tricks of what we've done and what we've seen with other clients, that would relate to you and your firm. So thanks again for listening, and hope you guys have a great week.